Welcome to Beyond the Fringe. The Can't Be There, Be Here continuation, because I think it's really important to try and maintain a momentum, especially if you're working project to project. My guest today, I would love to have had him on the Can't Be There, Be Here show during Edinburgh, but he had multiple shows. So rather than me telling you what it is that Joe Strickland had in his theatrical bag in Edinburgh, I will welcome him on screen so we can have a chat about it. And I'm really looking forward to really looking at nitty gritty of how much the Fringe costs as well. So a local here in the East Midlands and in Nottingham, welcome, Joe Strickland.
Hello. Hi.
Hey. Yeah, I would have loved to have had you on the show during Edinburgh, but it was just crazy.
It was
And
just, there was a lot going on. Yeah, I couldn't make it work.
Yeah, on the show. And then I forgot that I was doing a live show. So then I forgot to book guests and and I did get some great guests. So Fringe 2023, tell me about your adventure.
Yeah, well, we had one show up in person at Underbelly Cowgate, which was called 24, 23, 22. It was like a sort of time warped and gig theatre show. Two performers, one story forwards in time, one backwards. They collide in the middle. And we had 5 shows up digitally with the Travis Theatre, which I'll go into more detail in a second. I'm sure.
Yeah, so you've got the history of sort of independent theatre, but completely independent of even the independent sector. You're a technology creator, gone through PhD, interested in audience and immersive and suspension of disbelief and how we engage with the magic of theatre. And you've put that into a company, which is Chronic Insanity. So one of the venues you had up at Edinburgh was the Traverse. So tell me about where that was, how it came about, and what shows were in there. Just a little bit of what those shows were.
So getting to put something on with the Traverse, just in general, is amazing. For people that don't know, they're the kind of one of the kind of main venues in Edinburgh for theatre all year round. They're one of the kind of Edinburgh new writing venue and supported and do a load of plays with a lot of people that are always really brilliant, high quality. And then they have their own Fringe program on as well, and they cram as many shows as they can into their multiple spaces in their building for the month. And we were talking with them last year. We just put out an audio piece called Red Breast, which was like a spatial audio series of monologues interconnected. And that had won the Off West End Award for Best Audio Play. And we were trying to do more with it because we just sort of released it by ourselves on our website. And I got in touch with the Trav because I knew that they had done some good digital stuff over lockdown during the Fringe. And I was like, hey, are you doing any more digital work for the Fringe? We have a show that's award-winning and really good. Can we put it on? And we were talking last year about doing just that. And then I think we just sort of ran out of time, and I think they ran out of kind of resources as the Fringe got nearer and nearer and other things took priority. So we kind of put it on ice. And then we got back in touch with them at the beginning of this year saying, hey, do we want to do this year if we ran out of time last year? And they said, sounds good. Can you do even more? Do you have 3 shows would be perfect? And so we pitched them 3 ideas and said, also, we have these other shows in our back catalogue. Do you want any more than 3? And then they were like, okay, let's do 5. Let's do these 5. And then we took it from there. Yeah. Those 5 shows were, if I can remember, Red Breast, which is the one I was just talking about, the audio drama. There were 2 kind of like interactive video pieces, like the interactive Black Mirror episode Bandersnatch. One was called Pinocchio, but spelled PNOC.io. It was a sort of adaptation of Pinocchio, treating Pinocchio as an artificial intelligence owned by a tech company, and you, as the audience, have to decide whether you're going to believe that he's a real boy or not, and try and help release him back to his creator, Geppetto. There's also another one called There's Something Among Us, which is watching the kind of found footage last recording from a house full of YouTubers and streamers before it burnt down, and they're all playing Among Us, while also then all trying to figure out who is the sneaky people within the house. So it's a sort of life imitates game, all imitating art kind of thing. The other 2 was a another interactive piece, which is a bit more text-based, called Miles Away, which is one of our shows we did during the 2020 lockdown, where, again, it's your first day at a new tech company, and the recently ousted CEO hijacks your orientation and asks you to kind of be their spy and infiltrate the company and shut down and mess things up for them. And that gets more and more increasingly significant until you're doing things that you may or may not actually be comfortable with, in order to try and help destroy this company from the inside. And the final show was called Flavor Text, and that was a kind of an internet treasure hunt, an alternate reality game, or ARG, if people are familiar with that term, where there's 15 or 16 different websites that are interconnected, and you kind of start off looking for the phone number for your local Italian takeaway that has recently shut down. And then you start reading the comments on that website and figure out why, and that links to this, and then there's a disappearance, and then maybe there's this much wider conspiracy you fall down the rabbit hole of, to try and figure out. Yeah, those are the 5 pieces, all very different, and trying to do as many different digital things for different audiences as possible. Yeah.
And how did the audience experience those? Were they desk-based? Were they room-based? Were they, how did the audience arrive into the space, and how did they decide which ones to participate in, and
Sure.
and what did they make of them?
Yeah, so all of the pieces are online and on demand. So I'm a big believer that the liveness of theatre exists within the mind of the audience rather than as a quality of the work, for example. And therefore, liveness can be digitally replicated perfectly. Liveness is essentially presence, and we can all think there's something in the shadows when there isn't, so we can hallucinate presence when it's not there. And likewise, we can be completely blind to somebody directly behind us until we bump into them. So clearly, we're not very good at actually recognizing when presence exists around us, and therefore liveness can be tricked into us quite easily. And I think that digital theatre can therefore create that sense of liveness in the same way that something like a found footage horror film can make you scared because they're telling you it's real life, even though it isn't. It still can grip you in a certain difficult to explain instinctual way. And digital theatre can, and there's a reason why lots of the digital theatre we've done is stuff where the audience gets talked to directly, where they embody a character, like in Miles Away or Pinocchio, where they are uncovering something and finding after the fact stuff, like with There's Something Among Us, or with Flavor Text, or if it's more traditional, the audio play elements of Redbreast are more just like an audio play or a radio play, except we had the audio spatialized, so it sounded in 3 dimensions around you wherever you were sitting, rather than just being delivered directly into your ears. But they were all on demand, and people could engage with them either individually or get access to all 5 of them in one go, and do them whenever they wanted. They didn't have a time limit.
So it wasn't coming through a door. You didn't have people come to you and you take tickets. It was it was
all completely online.
Yeah. So,
all online, all remote. I guess one of the benefits was because Edinburgh's such a big thing on the kind of like arts calendar in the UK and internationally. It's the biggest arts festival in the world, but so many people can't get there for so many reasons. So we thought it would be fair to, if we were going to do digital work, and one of the benefits of that is its accessibility from a geographic perspective, why would we then region lock it or be like, you have to be there in person to pick up a code or scan a QR code or something? It's like, no, just have it online, email them a web link, and then let them
which is
go.
like the Can't Be There, Be Here this year. I mean, last year we looked at getting with the programme, generally looking at the massiveness that is the Edinburgh Fringe programme, but being aligned with PBH this year, I was really keen to focus in on what PBH shows. If you could only just see PBH shows, what were they? And it just opened my eyes to so many innovative spaces and small shows that they kind of you could spend your whole time just doing PBH shows and never encounter the rest of the Fringe.
Yeah.
So that was your digital offering for Fringe, the Can't Be There, Be Here. What about the physical offering that you had there at the festival?
The show we had in person, 24, 23, 22. That went really well. We got good. We have several metrics we go by to make sure if we've had like a good Fringe or not when we do Edinburgh, because this was our 8th consecutive year doing something for the festival, whether that's been in person or online during 2020 and 2021. And sometimes we do multiple things a year as well. We always go, first of all, did we leave it on reflection feeling like we had a good time? Did it feel worthwhile? And it did, which was good. And then we always had decent sized audiences. I know audiences can always vary at the Fringe, and we've been there when we've had I've performed to individual people several times, but our smallest audience was 12. That was also our first preview audience, and we were averaging somewhere between 20 and 30 for most of the performances, even getting up to the kind of late 40s and mid 50s in our 60-seat venue. On occasion, we weren't selling out, but we were doing well, doing enough to make it feel like we were performing to, a big group of people. And the audience is really lovely and appreciative of the show as well. And we got lots of good comments. And then we did decently from a reviewing perspective. We got nominated for a writing award, and we got 2 5-star reviews, 2 4-star reviews, and a smattering of others that were still, 3 stars, but really enjoying the show sort of thing. Yeah. And only 1, 2. A bit disappointed we didn't get a 1-star. Sometimes you want the full house of different levels of appreciation or lack thereof. That can sometimes be fun, but alas, no one really hated it quite so strongly, which I guess is a good thing. Silver lining on a weird goal. And then we made a little bit of money back. Like, I don't think we've ever profited at Edinburgh. I'm sure we'll talk about the finances.
So tell me a little bit about, this is the show that went up there. Let's talk about the figures. If anybody is interested in that and has come to the stream for that on us watching, I think it's important to talk about what does it cost in real terms. So take us through the numbers.
So this is actually probably having done Edinburgh so often, some of those earlier times we did it were like as students, and when you're doing it as a student, you're not paying anybody, and you're going up and you maybe doing it for a week, and you're all paying for your own accommodation, staying in a flat. And it's more affordable to do it when you're doing it like that, but that's only because everyone else is paying more. This was the first year we properly did it like, and it's also the first year we've had to and been able to as well. So we've never underpaid anyone knowingly. We paid everyone, and we did it as a professional company. We spent on the production itself about just shy of 11 grand. Accommodation on top of that was then 5.5 grand.
And you were there for the whole 3 weeks, weren't you?
We were there for the whole month of August, we performed 24 times or something. We had 1 day off in the middle of the run, and other than that, we were performing every day, 2:10 in the afternoon. The accommodation was we were in Leith, which was lovely, and it was like a 7-bed, 4-bedroom sort of accommodation, which is more affordable than other people were finding. We managed to book it quite luckily, I think, and that's one of my tips, is always to try and get your accommodation as soon as you know you're doing something, or even that you might do something, because you can always, someone else will take it off your hands if you don't want it. It's in demand, and if you're thinking of going up, it gets cheap. So there were people spending twice what we spent on worse accommodation because they didn't know they were going up until much sooner, and then they ended up only having, squished old, student housing where you've got 3 people to a room, and the living room has been turned into an extra bedroom, and it's 10 grand.
Oh, the exploitation is massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
And people who've been up, and then when they get up there, they find that the accommodation is quite what they thought, or it's not available. So can you break down that 11,000 cost for us?
Definitely, yeah.
The production.
So we had our show had 2 performers, and then me doing the music at the back of the stage. Each performer got paid 2,600 for the month, which was a fee that they negotiated together as a sort of mini 2-person union, and then came to me and was like, this is the fee that we want for Edinburgh, which is how it's a show we've been doing on and off for about 3 years, and it's always been the same cast, and we've always run it in that sort of let me know what you think. Here's what the plan for the run is. Here's what is fair for you to be paid. And everyone was still up working part-time jobs during the Fringe as well, remotely during the mornings and afternoons and evenings and stuff. So no one had to take any time off from work, but our performers each got paid 2,600 for the run. So that was about, it was 5,200. That was half of our budget, basically. We then paid rent for the space, which was probably around 2,600, 2,700 for the month for a 60-seat venue. I think you're looking at normally somewhere around 3 grand for that amount. And that was as a venue guarantee. So if we made more money, which we didn't, then we would have paid a portion of our ticket figures up to that as well, I think. But other than that, we paid about 300 quid to get registered with the Fringe program. We paid, we were with Underbelly, and we paid 600 quid to be in the Underbelly program, and on their website and in their ticketing to cover that cost. We then had some permanent poster hoardings up. There's a company called Out of Hand who will put up like kind of corrugated plastic posters all over Edinburgh. And to be included in that poster offering, we paid about 400 quid for some smaller A4 posters in these kind of big, they have like 10 A4 posters in a 2x5 tall thing. And then for some larger ones of just us on the sides of roads and the sides of railings and things. We paid about 400 quid on those. Sometimes people pay way more than that, but we tend to only do a few. We paid for another poster to go up just at Underbelly because they offered to get a big one up, and we thought that'd be good. You know, if people are at the venue, then they already, you know, that's half the battle, getting people to be there so they can always come back if they see our show. And we thought if we got good reviews and nominations for things, we could put them up on that poster, and then people would see, oh, not only does this already have good reviews, but we've got even more reviews since we've been here.
So posting up real estate if you want
posters themselves. I have lots of theories on marketing at the Fringe, and maybe we could go into that if there's time, but posters work if people already know who you are. I don't think a poster has ever got enough time or space on it to actually convince someone who's never heard of your show that your show is good, unless you're doing it through the image.
Yeah.
That's really difficult to do and a really nuanced skill most people don't have. But reviews are good, awards are good, a quick sentence description, some friendly faces, and also if anyone is famous or recognizable, make their face there or their name big. And whether that can be Fringe famous as well, if it's someone who like Edinburgh audiences might know specifically, particularly in the comedy centres. But for us, we had the poster design looked nice and was different coloured from other people's, so we could stand out a bit more. But we knew that it would be mainly for putting up paper reviews on, so that people would see, oh, this has been getting good reviews right this second. And then if they'd also heard about us from another means somehow, then it might just be, you know, I think you have to engage with people a couple of times before they start taking notice. I'll just rattle through a few more of these. I bought music equipment for 60 quid. We bought posters and flyers to hand out to leave in cafes to put up in pubs and stuff where people let you put up posters. That cost us about 110, but we used recycled materials and we got as minimum as we could because we knew we were mainly relying on word of mouth and online marketing and tweeting people asking for recommendations. That was our strategy, so it was more affordable and sustainable. Then just travel up there and round. A month-long tram ticket was 49 quid, and we were in Leith, so the tram went directly to where we were staying, and that meant we didn't ever have to worry about how we were getting back to our accommodation, even though we weren't staying right in the city centre, and that was well worth it. 49 quid for the month is less than 2 quid a day, and that's a return ticket by itself. So if you're making multiple trips backwards and forwards to drop off equipment and costume and put stuff onto the wash and come back out to see shows in the evening, that pays for itself within about a week, probably. Yes, I said that we paid our performers. I didn't get paid for producing or for directing or for doing the music and performing that at the back of the stage, but I gave myself an Edinburgh stipend of about £1,000 so that I could cover my living expenses while up there. That was for food and for seeing performances. And that was not, I had to be economical with it, but £1,000 was enough to live and be at the Fringe and get as many, go to the supermarket and buy food and make it at the house and get meal deals as much as it was to eat out and buying expensive street food because I want the experience and I'm caught short between shows and just need some chips with some stuff on them to keep me going. And I managed to see somewhere in the region of 50 to 60 performances, and most of those.
I know, that's what I was going to come on to. That's a really good breakdown, I think, of if people want to sort of hear those bits, a lot of marketing. I could ask more questions about that.
Yeah.
My brain was going. So going there, being there, tell me a bit about what you'd seen, and which ones have stood out for you and remained with you, and how have they influenced what you might want to program next, and what was it just fun to see them? What is the point of actually seeing other shows?
I guess the point of seeing shows, I was up in several different hats on. So I also worked part-time at the disability arts organisation Dada as their digital producer, and I was up seeing disability art and shows by disabled, deaf or neurodivergent creatives and artists, all for those audiences to kind of help with programming in the future. And I got a few, and also because we want to do more digital and immersive stuff through Dada at the moment, so I'm going up for research to kind of be inspired, as you said, as well as going up to see who's out there and wants to be commissioned and wants to be hired to do our festivals that we run or our other opportunities or run workshops for us, or be artists that we support as well in our artist development schemes. for Chronic, it was also inspiration, and also just seeing stuff like Edinburgh is where lots of people, show their wares. The shows they've been working on, we go to some of the venues that we have as favourites: Zoo, Summer Hall, and the Roundabout, the Painsplough Roundabout, Summer Hall, a few other places. Underbelly is often quite good as well. There's a lot of places that we like going to, and the Free Fringe is always good for comedy, improv, sketch comedy, all sorts of stuff as well, which is a really nice place to go and see some stuff there. And the Traverse does a lot of professional productions that just happen to be on at the Fringe rather than like Fringe shows. So they've got all the bells and whistles and set and lighting and star casting you might want or expect from those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some shows that I really enjoyed. There's a show called Clanghouse In-House, which was a sort of immersive music gig, live art installation where you kind of came into this big front room with all the music equipment around you, and you had ear defenders and could sit wherever you wanted, and the musicians would walk between you and kind of play instruments set up in different parts of that room. It was like an hour-long album, and the audience got to move, and someone was moving around, changing slides on projectors and moving them to kind of create a live light show with projection, and the audience had to like pass instruments to the performers, but it just felt like you're all in the space making this thing together. It felt so much more immersive and present, and like it was all happening around you, and that was great. And I always like how live and immediate gig theatre feels, and though that didn't have any story, it was just a music gig. That felt really good, and I thought that was really brilliant to experience, and would be difficult to explain if someone had seen it and had to tell me about it. So actually going to that was great. And then just seeing other shows as well. Like I was performing a show. We presented 2 shows at Vault Festival earlier this year, and there were other shows on, but Vault lasts 8 weeks, and I don't live in London, so I can't just see stuff when it's on. But some of the shows came up to Edinburgh, so I got to catch a few shows that I'd missed previously or that had been touring, and now I was in the right place where they were and free and available to see stuff. The show Butchered by the company Expialatrocious was a really fun kind of dark horror show on stage about some sausage makers, an old-timey and apprentice sausage maker, and this weird twisted kind of gothic setting where they existed and made these sausages, and it was really a really good horror done on stage, really good sound design. That was really fun and interesting as well. And then Summer Hall as a venue always has loads of really good work on. So it was things like me, Nan and Barbara Pravi, Gunter, You Are All Going to Die. Lots of very kind of shows that really just threw a lot at them as well. And that was a running theme this year, and a lot of shows that have clearly like devised shows, but with a really strong story narrative, a replay as well by the Rewind. Sorry, that was a really good show as well. Lots of music and movement and storytelling and live instruments and choruses and verbatim theatre and all of this stuff being thrown together. Again, Woodhill by Lung Theatre as well into that as a great Summer Hall show. It's a lot of things all together. And that was lots of other shows around the festival were doing that this year, but I think Summer Hall specifically. Anything That We Wanted to Be by Adam Lensam. Again, lots of kind of loop pedal, storytelling, multimedia stuff. Slash as well, which was the kind of on-stage dramatization of erotic fan fictions from around the internet, all sorts of mixtures and blends of like digital stuff represented on stage. Things Hidden Since the Foundation of the World by the Javid Alapur company was on at the Traverse, and again, that was a similar on-stage. How do we present digital stories on stage in a way that hits properly? And I saw lots of good ensemble storytelling work with lots of different mishmashes of genres and mediums in them, and also lots of work that did digital on stage really well. And I think it's really nice to see people cracking that and starting to develop the best ways of telling those stories to an in-person audience who might not otherwise engage with it if it was online. So
and really interesting to hear that things that you had missed elsewhere on the Fringe and independent circuit that came up to Edinburgh. You mentioned Vault Festival. The Edinburgh Fringe isn't the only Fringe event.
No.
And as this is beyond the Fringe, what are the other sort of similarly, not size, because Edinburgh is a size of itself, but things like Vault, just some of the little festivals that you've presented at that you're aware of, just sort of where are you hoping to go next, and where do you see other stuff?
So we've done some stuff at Vault Festival, which is in end of January to end of March most years. They're not doing it next year because they haven't been able to. They lost the venue, the Vaults under Waterloo Station. They normally stage the festival in, and they haven't yet found a replacement venue, so it's not going ahead next year. But they're hopeful that the festival will be saved, and it's one of the only consolidated festivals in London for stuff throughout the year. The other being Camden Fringe, probably, which happens in August at the same time as Edinburgh for people who can't or don't want to go all the way up to Edinburgh. There's also we've never presented at Camden Fringe, but it's there. Brighton Fringe we've done before. It's obviously in Brighton, kind of May, June. It's obviously not normally pre-Edinburgh time, but that we've done once before. And that's pretty good. Again, it's like Edinburgh, but on a slightly smaller scale, the same vibe of big venues that operate all the time and smaller independent places that open up a room in their toy museum or hairdressers or wherever for performances to go in. Lots of good quirky spaces. And then regionally, particularly out of we've got the Buxton Fringe seems to be growing, and I hear more and more people going there and taking work and really enjoying it and finding really good audiences as well. And the Greater Manchester Fringe has always kind of been around. I think it's a shame it doesn't get engaged with so much by the main performance venues in Manchester, to my knowledge, like Home, Contact, the Royal Exchange, the Lowry, but that still chugs along and exists. And I'm hearing more and more shows doing the Manchester Fringe and then touring or going on to the Edinburgh Fringe from there.
And then all year round there is London Fringe, which exists beyond the West End. It's often difficult to distinguish which shows are which, but that, going down to London and seeing something a little bit more independent as well as some of the mainstream shows. Wow. So moving beyond the Fringe for Chronic Insanity, how do you maneuver from Edinburgh onwards? You're running the business. Sounds very elaborate to say business, isn't it? But we are business owners. We're entrepreneurs. How does your year pan out? So are you working year to year, or have you got a 3-year schedule, or are you partway through a strategy? How are you going to be getting into the end of this year and into 2024?
We're working. I'm trying to think of a way that doesn't sound terrifying or doesn't sound pretentious to describe it, because I identify as disabled. I'm neurodivergent. I think and plan things sometimes quite differently to other people. And while it's very smart and definitely a good idea if you're starting a business to have that sort of 3-year, 5-year plan, the chronic 3 or 5 year plan exists in a more kind of quantum, multi-dimensional, superpositioned way where there are aims and ideas that we want to do, but we have no idea.
There's the dyslexic and the neurodiverse.
12 shows in 12 months thing. That which sounded at the time quite elaborate, like that's loads of work and how are you going to do that? But we thought we could, and we did, and we've done that every year since. We've exceeded that quite substantially at times, almost doubling it, if not actually doubling it for 1 year. So we are always ambitious because we know that you can't achieve your ambitions without being ambitious. They're not just going to come and exist. So we think we'll go for those, but we've got some ambitions that are huge and have literally never been done before, and others that feel much more achievable. But we'd never really set like this is the year we're going to do this, because it's not in our power. Because although we are a company and we have that power as a company, we don't have any reasonable or regular funding. We don't have any local council funding. We're not a national portfolio organization with the Arts Council. We go on occasional project bids, and we normally work quite lo-fi and with low resources, paying people and then buying equipment we can use over and over again. But other than that, not doing a whole bunch of stuff other than just really willing things into existence, making them happen a lot. So that means that we can be quite reactive and we can jump at an opportunity and take it and then do that. And that we wouldn't have known about that, if we were making a plan for the year. Our main thing is that we try and do our 12 shows in 12 months project every year. We don't always know exactly which shows that will be. Sometimes we have things on the horizon that are planned. Sometimes we know if we're doing Edinburgh or Brighton or Vault or a tour or a particular show in a particular space. So we have 1 or 2 things we know are happening next year, but nowhere near 12. Whereas funding dependent, maybe a couple more things happening, but again, probably not near 12. Yeah. And so we kind of vary. And then we have those larger ambitions as well, as you said, from a business perspective, to really kind of challenge what a theatre company is and how it can work and how it should work, particularly now post lockdown, in the kind of place we find ourselves where it feels like everyone is exhausted and there's no money to go around and everyone is just asking for work and no one has any, there's not enough space because the industry has been training more people than it can support for God knows how many years. And now everyone's sort of like, hi, I'm tired. And I think other people should look after me because I'm an artist, and they're completely right, but no one's doing it. So what can we, I get into the point where I'm like, can Chronic fix all of the key issues? And of course it can't, but can we at least try and play around with
I think there's the sort of self-supporting artist genre that is really important now for new creators coming out of drama schools and film schools, that you kind of have to make a bit of your own work. And I think that is very much different than what used to be talked about in the fringe sector, which was profit share. And I think one of the things I love about Chronic Insanity and the way you tell your story is that this is art that's made as part of all of your emerging lives. You're all doing other work to bring in the funds to be able to add and contribute to the work that you do. So it becomes more of a lifestyle, and it's not about profit share. It's not about, can we do art to make money? It's about, how can we make money to sustain ourselves so we can make art? And I think, and Chronic Insanity do that really well. So you've just expanded into a drama program. You've got a writing department now.
Yeah, we've just finished our pilot year of we have a digital theatre literary department, which we believe to be the first in the UK, maybe anywhere, where we specifically take writers on board and we try and train them up, to make digital theatre, because we think making digital theatre has different needs and skills than making traditional theatre on a stage. But they're very translatable and transferable. So we want to try and explore what that is. We've done a pilot year. We're in the evaluation phase of that, and we're trying to get more funding to keep running it. But that's sort of what I'm talking about, the idea of like, we're a small company, it's mainly just me with then our co-founder Nat helping out, as well as a few producers and associate artists we have a bunch of as well who come on from a project by project basis. But it's not like we have an office and a staff and things. And yet we seem to be the people sometimes being like, this should exist, so we're going to just do it. And do we do it perfectly? No, of course not. We don't know how to do it, but no one who knows how to do it is doing it. So we've got to do it. Someone's got to do it.
Which nicely brings us on to Allsorts, really, which you're doing all sorts of stuff, but being able to give opportunities to local East Midlands regional creatives who don't quite know their way in the world. I think what you've done with Allsorts has just been amazing. So just tell us about Allsorts and sort of a bit more of your work in the region and how you work with local artists.
Sure.
And when the next Allsorts is going to be.
Sure. So Allsorts is our kind of open mic night, scratch night, gig theatre, jam night, whatever. We've described it as many things in the past, and often there's a musical or a theatrical element, but we've also had people just do stand-up and sketches and just play songs without any theatre attached, or do live art as well and performance art stuff, show videos of their animation and songs and music videos as well. Like, it really is just a place for people to share artwork that they've made. There used to be some scratch nights in Nottingham when I first kind of arrived in Nottingham about 10 years ago. The Playhouse used to do scratch nights, and scratch nights are nights for new work, for work in progress, where people have gone, I've started writing this or making this or performing this, and I want to try out in front of an audience to see how an audience reacts, because I need to know that in order to shape it for future life. And then when there just weren't any happening, and we wanted to try and, we had some time and some energy, and we wanted to try and support that. And we knew we would benefit from having an audience to try work out in front of, but we thought, well, let's give that as a thing that's how we kind of think a lot, is like, what do we want to exist? Do other people also want this to exist? Right, and then let's make it so we can have it as well as everyone else that wants it. And we're not going to hog it, and we'll be one of the group of people who are trying to get this thing, so we can be part of that group, even if we are running the thing. And that's how we started it. And we did a few nights at Rough Trade in Nottingham, and then we jumped venues around a bit to the Chapel, the Angel Microbrewery, and then to Surface Gallery. And then we've settled at Nonsuch Studios, and we run it pretty much monthly there. The next one is on September the 21st, and it'll be a sort of, we took a break during August because we were up in Edinburgh for the Fringe, but it will be kind of coming back into its own, and we'll have music and comedy and theatre and poetry and all sorts of things happening. Hence the name. But yeah, it's been really lovely to meet new artists and find new people we wouldn't have known before. We've known much more about the improv scene and the performance poetry scene and the live art scene in Nottingham because people have found our weird little scratch night and have tried out things, and we've started to find more people who are more multidisciplinary, and then people have met at Allsorts and have started coming up with shows together to then present at the night, and that's lovely to see. And I really wanted it to be that sort of fertile ground for people to start to kind of go from
and
that
people who
sort of like amateur perspective of like, just I want to try this and see how it goes, to really be like, oh, this is that's why it's there, so people can do work in front of an audience and go, oh, this audience gets this work. And that's one of the best things about Allsorts, is how lovely the audience is, how the audience is there knowing that they're going to look at people trying some things out for the first time, and I think the audience really appreciates that. And so we've always had, and we don't think we've ever had an artist really tell us that they found it particularly intimidating or difficult, or having done it. The audience is always really lovely, and I think you sit down in the audience before your turn, you watch the other acts, you see how nice and how giving and how generous the audience are with their time and their energy, and then when it's your turn to go up, you are still nervous if you're nervous, but you don't quite feel like you're not going in front of a fire.
It's a real experience. I mean, I attended a few. And having been stuck backstage for a lot of my career, I actually found it quite scary at one point, but actually really liberating after I got over that hurdle. And I think it's a really precious part of the crucible of creativity of what Allsorts is. And I'm starting to see artists that have performed there, especially the circus and the mime and some of the drag artists, who are going and being on the bills of some of these comedy shows that are starting to pop up. There's definitely a sense that things are starting to happen in that sector. Well, I think thank you so much, Joe, for coming on this journey. I'm sure I will have you back on the show at some point. I've got loads of things that we can talk about, but we'll keep to topic. So again, the next Allsorts being
September the 21st, starts at 7:30 usually.
Excellent. Well, I will pull together as many links as I can in the show notes. Thank you, everyone, for making it to the end. Do check out the pcminmersive.co.uk website, and I will bring this stream to an end.